Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NetBackup for the Next Generation Data Center session. My name is Beatrice Mukantabana from Veritas. I'm here to moderate this session. If you have questions or comments, please use the chat window and we'll get your questions answered at the end during the Q&A session. With us today, we have Roger Stein, Product Marketing Manager for Appliances at Veritas. We also have Sri Harsha, we call him Harsha. He's Staff Product Manager. He's responsible for the NetBackup Flex Scale product. Roger, please take it away.
Thanks, it's great to be here and to introduce our new scale-out version of NetBackup. So as you know, there's over 800 workloads supported by NetBackup, going from everything from standard databases all the way to workloads in the cloud. And NetBackup has been continually extended as these new workloads have been introduced into the enterprise. From the appliance side, we introduced NetBackup Appliances about over 5 years ago as an optimized integration of NetBackup to increase productivity and speed deployment. About 3 years ago, we introduced NetBackup Flex Appliances, again, to introduce the agility of containers to NetBackup and further increase productivity. Today, we're introducing NetBackup Flex Scale, which further extends NetBackup to support emerging trends in the modern data center. But before we go into the details of NetBackup Flex Scale, I think Harsha, who's been really working with the design team for a long time to bring Flex Scale out, would like to give a shout out to them and congratulate them on the accomplishment.
Hey, thanks, Roger. And a big thanks to the entire engineering design team and the cross-functional teams who have been working on Flex Scale relentlessly. And congratulations to everyone on the Flex Scale launch.
Yes, I want to second that. And I think as we go through this talk, you'll see why we're so excited about NetBackup Flex Scale. So with that, let's dive in. So Harsha, you've been out talking to our customers about their needs in the modernized data as they modernize their data center. Can you give us some idea of what they've been asking for, some of the requirements, some of the important things that they need as they modernize a data center?
Absolutely, Roger. As customers modernize their data center, they have plenty of concerns, plenty of complaints about the way things are running today. And modernizing a data center definitely requires them to uplift their technology and make it better to solve new age problems. So the very first one that they're dealing with is infrastructure simplification. So customers are looking for pay-as-you-grow type of model where they can simplify their infrastructure and make it resilient. So as they move towards a software-defined modern data center model, they are looking for an OpEx and subscription type of option, which will reduce their investment, not increase, rather reduce their investment into the data center while their data is exponentially growing. So that's an interesting challenge to deal with. And the second challenge that customers are facing today is to manage and to use off-the-shelf commodity hardware. Gone are those days where customers are willing to buy $1 million worth of expensive equipment. They are looking for a software-defined solution where they can leverage commodity hardware. And the biggest advantage this offers to customers is to standardize their data center with commodity hardware. And the third challenge is to deal with hardware refresh. Like, data is eternal, data lives forever. But when it comes to hardware will end of life, right? So hardware will change the generations. Hardware needs to be upgraded. And not just hardware, also there will be some major software upgrade cycles as well. And customers hate to see the data center going down while they do these major upgrades. So they are looking for a solution which reduces the pain of forklift upgrades. And the fourth challenge is about resiliency. I think we have been talking about this commodity hardware. The minute you talk about commodity hardware, like failed servers, failed hardware components, failed hard disks on the floors of data center is not uncommon. Believe me, like off-the-shelf hardware and commodity hardware definitely brings in lots of resiliency challenges. So customers are looking for a solution which can sustain the disk failures, sustain the server failures. They are looking for a solution which can sustain multi-point failure rather than a solution that can sustain a single point failure. And finally, the most important one, like, customers are looking for a solution which is easy to automate with the help of APIs and SDKs. Like, cloud-like operations model is what customers are looking for. And the biggest reason for a demand towards APIs and SDKs is the way administrative roles are changing. We all know gone are those days like where customers used to have hundreds of specialists with the different roles. Now everything is morphing and transforming into a generalist role. So with the generalist role, I would actually call the generalist as a god with 10 hands, because they have to handle multiple workloads, protecting the primary data, protecting the secondary data. They have to handle applications and they have to handle the infrastructure piece as well. And that's posing a huge challenge. Having these APIs and SDKs will definitely make the life of generalists very easy, where they can perform multiple tasks. So when I said generalist is like a god with 10 hands, actually that reminds me of one of the Indian goddess, like Durga, who got like 10 hands literally. And that's how I see these generalists as. And to summarize, if you look at all these challenges in a one big picture, I'm sure it sounds scary, like, pay as you grow. I'm coming in an anti-clockwise direction, by the way. Pay as you grow, using commodity and off-the-shelf hardware refresh, resiliency, providing automation to enable cloud-like operations. These are the challenges customers are dealing with.
Well, so now I'm getting an understanding of the challenge we placed before the design team, because they had to take start with the data protection foundation of NetBackup, where we support 800 workloads or over 800 workloads, and extend that to the new requirements that you were hearing from our customers as they modernize their data center. So Harsha, can you give us an idea of how they approach the problem and the architecture they came up with to kind of make these two requirements of extending NetBackup to the modern data center?
Absolutely. So if you look at the NetBackup architecture and the Flex Scale architecture, unlike our competitors or unlike other scale-out solutions that are there in the market, so we actually focus on the workloads. So workloads are the most important ones, where we always start with, because that's what we want to protect. And we have that experience of protecting 800 different workloads. And we have designed the underlying scale-out architecture or storage based on the experience we gained over years protecting the workloads. See, there are many scale-out architectures or scale-out solutions. You may find a data protection solution just because they have a cool file system. They ended up solving data protection problem. But here, the story is different. So we always start with the workloads and we focus on the workloads. See, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love Google-like file system, Facebook-like file systems, which are designed for something else, not for addressing data protection challenges. So in short, we leverage our years of innovation, protecting 800 different workloads, and use that to build a strong and effective scale-out infrastructure underneath.
Wow, so now I'm getting a little more insight into what we did. So actually, since we're a data protection company, we started out from a data protection perspective to build a scale-out architecture versus just taking a standard scale-out operating system and bolting NetBackup on top of it.
Exactly.
So our scale-out architecture is actually optimized for data protection. So can you give us a little bit more detail about how it's optimized and some of the benefits you get from a scale-out architecture that's optimized for data protection in a data protection environment?
Absolutely. So when you talk about the benefits offered by NetBackup Flex Scale, like I can talk for hours, But to put that in a good perspective, so the workloads that are offered by the workloads that are protected by NetBackup, they are the most important ones. We support 800 different workloads, which none of the other scale out vendors offer today. That's a huge advantage that customers would get. It doesn't matter how old that workload is, including your physical server protection, including your legacy database protection, and all the way up to protecting the new age workloads and NoSQL databases and cloud native applications. It doesn't matter what type of application you want to protect. NetBackup Flex Scale covers pretty much every workload that enterprise organizations use today to protect and give a seamless experience. And the second biggest benefit that's offered by FlexScale is around, it's a reliable and faster performing solution. And there is a reason to that. So we actually focused on networking layer, and we focused on the infrastructure layer extensively. And by the way, these are some of the disadvantages we found in other scale-out architectures. And we made sure that those issues are addressed when we design scale-out architecture from scratch. So network optimization, where it's completely tuned for data protection solution, and not just that, within the flex scale architecture, it offers a containerized solution, which makes it extremely simple and easy when it comes to failover, offering a fast failover solution. And also I can roll back easily whenever I have any issues with the current version of NetBackup. And the other most important part is the scale out has been designed the right way, right? So like the whole network optimization that I have been talking about, and the other solutions that we offer with the solution, so they make it extremely simple and easy to use.
So now we have I think you get a good description of how we optimize the scale out architecture on FlexScale for data protection. Another important facet of data protection is resiliency. Data protection is your last line of defense in the enterprise, so resiliency is an important feature or aspect of it, and that was one of the big asks I think customers asked for as they moved to the as they modernized their data center. They needed more resiliency. Can you give us an idea of how we built resiliency into NetBackup Flex Scale, into the scale out architecture?
Definitely, and that's an important one. So Roger, let me ask a question back to you. If I give you a choice to choose between optimization and resiliency, which one would you choose?
I want them both. I can't compromise on that, or I don't want to compromise on that.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens when you go with a competitor solution, right? So other scale-out architectures, you have an option to choose between either resiliency or optimization, but as you rightly mentioned, customers don't want to compromise one over the other. So they need both resiliency as well as optimization. That's why I call it as resiliency plus optimization. And it's not a choice, right? So it's not, hey, choose which one you want. It's not an option box. Rather, customers want both. So the way we designed the FlexScale solution with the erasure coded architecture underneath, I mean, I'll not get into a whole lot of technical details here, but the way the storage layout has been designed within FlexScale, it actually offers a resilient solution. When I say resiliency, customers are looking for a solution which can sustain multi-point failures. When I say multi-point failures, multiple server nodes, multiple disks, multiple peripheral components within the storage server and within the data center. A solution that can sustain multi-point failures. That's exactly what FlexScale offers. The second most important part is, even though it offers multi-point resiliency, you are still getting a great resiliency and optimization as well with the solution. Your effective utilization capacity is going to stay the same, irrespective of the number of resiliency points you increase or decrease. The third most important part is, this is important because as you increase in a commodity world, off-the-shelf server world, as you increase the number of nodes, number of servers in a distributed and scale-out system, you are actually prone to more and more failures. So as the size of the cluster increases, your resiliency also increases dynamically. That's where NetBackup Flex Scale offers a huge benefit to customers by offering these three values with resiliency and optimization.
Okay, so now we understand how we built resiliency into NetBackup Flex Scale. Another big requirement from customers, or another aspect about the modernized data center, or the modern data center that you learned, was that there's a lot of generalist users there. So they're really focused on their application, and they don't really have a deep understanding of data protection and how the data protection infrastructure works. So they really needed a lot of automation, or they wanted automation built into the to their next generation data protection environment, so these general users could protect their data, but also focus on their application. Can you give us some insight, or even maybe a demonstration of how we built automation into a NetBackup Flex Scale to make it easier to use?
Absolutely. So effectively, NetBackup Flex Scale offers both resiliency and optimization, offering all these key features that I mentioned. Now let's look at the feature in action. All right, I got a Flex Scale cluster up and running with all the services online. So I have a 5-node cluster with a bunch of disks that are online. Now let's introduce some failures into the system. As you can see here, one of the disks has failed. Out of 75 disks, I have only 74 healthy and online disks. Let's look at the detailed status of the disks, find out which one is faulted. So as you can see here, this is the disk that's faulted. And now let's look at the NetBackup services and understand what's going on with the NetBackup services. Even though I have a failed disk, a failed component in Flex Scale cluster, there is no interruption to the NetBackup services and NetBackup jobs. My NetBackup jobs, the backup and restore jobs, they are continuing without any interruption. That's awesome. Now let's continue further and introduce one more failure. So how many nodes you see here? There are 5 nodes, out of which only 4 nodes are online and healthy. Also, I see some degraded media and storage services. That's a serious problem. I have a failed node and I have a failed disk as well. That's a multi-point failure. Let's look at the details of these failures. As I get into the disk page, the list of details, and here comes the status. All these disks that are marked as offline, they belong to a node that went down a few seconds back. On top of it, I have a disk failure in another node. Okay, that's a multi-point failure. Now let's look at the NetBackup services. My NetBackup services are up and running, even though there is a multi-point failure with the node as well as disk failure.
Okay, so wow, this was a really nice demo, Harsha. And I think it really shows how with NetBackup Flex Scale, we built resiliency and storage optimization. So you get the really, you don't have to make any compromises with Flex Scale on resiliency, which is an important thing. Also, another important request from customers or requirement was generalist users. In the modern data center, they have a lot of generalist users that really are focused on their application, and they really don't have a deep understanding of data protection or the data protection infrastructure. So they really needed some automation so they could really focus on their automation in the data protection application, so they could really focus on their applications and make sure their data was protected. That would be the best way they could spend their time. So could you give us a bit of insight into how we built automation into NetBackup Flex Scale, or maybe even another little demo?
Absolutely. So I think you are referring to those gods who got 10 hands. So how about adding few more hands? So that's exactly what we did with the Flex Scale operations simplification. So we have a bunch of APIs and SDKs offered with Flex Scale. And these APIs and SDKs would help customers and administrators to automate the way they want using their existing automation infrastructure or using new age, cutting edge automation infrastructure as they refresh their data center. So these APIs and SDKs would help customers to define config files and run certain scripts. Like, here in this screenshot, I got a script, which by the way, I have automated it myself. It's extremely simple and easy. And Roger, you should try this sometime. As you write those scripts and automate the scenario, within few minutes, it's going to convert a bare metal off-the-shelf commodity server into a full-fledged Flex Scale cluster, all the way transforming it into a fully running Flex Scale solution, right? And this is possible with the help of the automation that's been built into the solution. Now, on top of it, we also understand that upgrading the software, whether it's a minor upgrade, whether it's a major upgrade, is a huge challenge. And that challenge becomes a multi-fold challenge with a cluster solution, because it's not just one system that you need to upgrade. You have multiple systems to deal with. So with the simplified upgrade process and mechanism offered by Flex Scale UI, all you need to do is select the upgrade, select the patch you want to upgrade into the system, and click a button. You're all set.
So it really is easier to use, or we built a lot of simplifications into NetBackup Flex Scale for the generalist user. Okay. Another thing that customers ask for, which is sort of related to automation and scale out, is to use off-the-shelf hardware. They have relationships with hardware vendors. Their primary storage is based on off-the-shelf hardware. So they wanted to extend that to their data protection and infrastructure. So we did that with NetBackup Flex Scale. Can you give us some insight into the new deployment model we have with NetBackup Flex Scale?
That's definitely a good story to talk about, Roger. So let me ask you a question. Do you like pizza?
Of course, as long as it's vegetarian.
Awesome. I also like veggie pizza, and probably that's the only thing we are on same page with. Okay, cool. So see, in a typical pizza, right? So you have two options. You order a pizza, but it comes with its own flavor, its own toppings. Alternatively, you can cook a pizza yourself. You can make a pizza yourself with the choice of your toppings, but it's a time-consuming process. So I compared a readily available pizza as a plug-and-play turnkey experience, and I compare a pizza which you can cook yourself with the choice of your toppings, with a bring your own server, like build it the way you want type of model. With Flex Scale, what we thought was, why not bring the best of both the worlds, right? So give you a turnkey experience offered by appliances, at the same time offer a commodity hardware experience, a choice of your hardware that you are standardizing in your data center. So that's exactly what we did with the Flex Scale. So this model is called a Veritas validated platform. And with the Veritas validated platform, the very first version of Flex Scale is going to support HPE hardware, and eventually we are going to launch the solution with other known industry standard and off-the-shelf hardware vendors. So if you look at the Veritas NetBackup solutions, starting from the edge or remote location, remote office, to a core data center, and to a private cloud or public cloud of type of deployment, Veritas NetBackup offers multiple solutions that fit different use cases. At Veritas, we believe that one size doesn't fit all.
Yes. And Harsha, I agree. It's an important benefit of NetBackup in our multiple ways to deploy it. And we talked a lot today about the 800 plus workloads that we support. Imagine in our audience, if we had 800 people and we handed out a one size fits all t-shirt, I think we'd have a pretty uncomfortable audience and a pretty unhappy audience. So the choice we offer with NetBackup is really an important benefit of NetBackup as you modernize your data center. So with that image in our mind, I'd like to thank everybody for attending our session. And now we're ready to take some Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harsha and Roger. That was an amazing session. So we had some questions actually that came through the Q&A, and I'm just gonna go read through them. So one of the question is how a NetBackup customer can take benefit of the Flex Scale solution to do an evolution of its data center, of its protection strategy.
NetBackup can be leveraged, existing NetBackup licenses can be leveraged by customers. Not just that, it reduces the learning curve because the same NetBackup flavor and the way customers have been protecting their workloads, it's going to stay the same, even though the underlying architecture is now scaled out. So you have a reduced learning curve, and you can leverage your existing NetBackup licenses with Flex Scale.
Great. Thank you, Harsha. And another question that came in through was, is there a program to support a migration from NBU to Flex Scale? Hold on, is there a program to support a migration from NBU to Flex Scale infrastructure?
Yes, we are working on some migration options and migration strategy, especially using the catalog migration tools and other options. We will share more details as we progress with those migration options.
And another question that came through, how does Flex Scale licensing work?
So if you look at Flex Scale, there are 3 components within Flex Scale, like the hardware piece. Yeah, of course, you have to buy the hardware, and then the NetBackup piece of it. You can leverage your existing NetBackup licenses, and there is a third factor, a third parameter here. So you need to have NetBackup Flex Scale infrastructure license as well. That's an additional requirement on top of your hardware and on top of the NetBackup license you have.
And another question for you, what are the examples of Flex Scale automation?
We have demonstrated one of the examples in the video or in the demo, right? So Flex Scale offers plenty of automation options. Like what we did, we built SDKs using Python libraries, and also we have extensive APIs. When you think about NetBackup, there are thousands of APIs, REST APIs offered by NetBackup. And on top of it, what we did, we actually leveraged the infrastructure APIs as well. So the combination of infrastructure APIs and NetBackup REST APIs and the SDKs we built, you are open to a world of things where you can automate, starting from a bare metal all the way to a fully running system, and then automatically scale the system as well. What if you run out of space in future, like you are at 80% and you want to expand capacity? You can do automation to automatically add more nodes into a scalable solution.
Doesn't it do some automatic load balancing also when you add those nodes, and so that you don't have to do that manually anymore?
Yeah.
Great. I think those are the questions I have. I actually would like to thank all of you for attending the session and your active engagement. To continue this conversation, please visit vrts.as/NBU9 and join the NetBackup 9 user group for the latest blog posts and release updates. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you all.